So joining us now is Dr. Shefali Gandhi, a clinical psychologist who partners with the Arizona Child and Family Advocacy Network. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure.
Before we jump into child abuse cases in the state as a whole, let's talk about Emma's story that she just did. How common is this type of situation where there's a couple, one of them has a child, and the child becomes the victim?
So I think, and it's a really excellent question to ask. And I think it really comes down to the amount of stress that folks are dealing with. If there is any other stressors involved, a lot of times that can diminish parenting capacity. It can diminish a parent's ability to respond in a way that's not physically aggressive, not emotionally abusive. And then it's a slippery slope, and it can eventually become something more than was originally intended, or that aggression comes out and it can be targeted towards anybody in the home.
We're going to talk about in just a bit how you can recognize maybe those signs in yourself if you're not paying attention. But let's get back to 2020. It's been a very strange year. We're in a pandemic. People are stressed out. They're losing their jobs. These are just some of the reasons why domestic violence cases are going up right now, I'm assuming.
So, yeah, anytime you have a stressful situation and you have individuals who are at risk to engage in behaviors that may be aggressive or may be domestic violence, child abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. When you have a stressor involved, and a stressor, something like this, where it's out of their control, they may start to feel powerless. And then the aggression, the lowered impulse control, decreased inhibition kind of creates a perfect storm to where now you have potentially an opportunity even to engage in behaviors that you may not engage in, or it may be a pattern and people aren't seeing you because we're quarantined or we're socially distanced. And so now there's other people externally aren't recognizing.
Yeah, so it's getting way out of control. So when it comes to kids, is it safe to say that when they were in school, they had a bit more protection than they would have right now? In a sense, their teachers were paying more attention to them, maybe even the reporters of suspected abuse if they felt something was off. And now kids are at home and that extra layer is not there.
And it's a really good point to bring up that when we are separated and we are distanced, the signs that you might see aren't being caught early. And so then the intensity and severity may also be increasing because, like you said, kids are separated, they're at home, they're not out, they're not playing with each other, they're not being seen by their teachers. And so then that risk is increased because we don't know what's happening. Because that sense of community is lost, and then the protection that comes with being in a community can be impacted.
And as you explained just a minute ago, there are people who have been in the system before the pandemic and maybe they're back in the system now because of the stress, but there are probably more people who are in the system now who have never had problems before. So what is your advice to people, parents in particular, who are struggling, maybe feeling stressed a little bit differently because of what we're going through? How do you begin to realize, okay, I'm acting differently toward my child, and this could potentially be very bad, and I could go to jail, and my kids can be in the system potentially?
Again, that's such a good question. It comes down to us being able to recognize the signs in us, right? If we're more easily angered, our frustration tolerance is lower, we're just irritable and on edge all the time. We're acting in ways that are just not typical of us. And so when we have that kind of awareness, we can take a step back and reach out for support. Domestic violence shelters, family advocacy centers, communities, hospitals. There are lots of parenting groups. There are support groups. Reach out to friends, reach out to family. If you feel yourself getting easily angered, if you're feeling aggressive or irritable or on edge, reach out and ask for help is one of the most important things you can do. Reach out to community supports as much as everybody can. There's the Warm Line at Crisis Response Network. There's a lot of different resources available to folks that need that support in especially at stressful times like right now.
Yeah, it's good advice. Dr. Gandhi, how do people get in touch with you if they'd like to talk?
They can always call my office. That phone number I can give you guys right now. It's 602-430-2051. So that's my office line. But there's also the Maricopa County Crisis Line that they can always reach out to. And domestic violence shelters and family advocacy centers have victim advocates who have a ton of resources in terms of peer support and crisis responses.
All right. Dr. Gandhi, we'll work with our producers to get that information from you so we can put it on our website, easyfamily.com.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time tonight.